Namaste, and welcome to, thank you for joining me in my next video here. This particular video will be about some of the texts, some of the Buddhist texts that are found within the Theravada tradition, which in terms of the Buddhist teachings, I tend to kind of follow that a little bit more. And as I said in my introduction, there are certain things in the other traditions such as Tibetan Buddhism and Zen, Japanese Buddhism, that I also kind of follow. But in terms of the actual teachings of the Buddha, I tend to kind of lean more towards the Theravada tradition. This is said to be the oldest tradition, and I think it's called the Way of the Elders. This goes way back to the time of the Buddha himself, and this is the as close as you can get to the original teachings based off of history. And so I'm kind of standing up here to kind of show you everything here, and also really quickly, these are known as suttas, and the word sutta and the word kama and the word dhamma are all in Pali. Sutta, of course, would be like the discourses or the teachings, basically the discourses, and sort of like sermons, if you will. Kama is Pali for karma, and Dhamma is the Pali word for Dharma. Most people recognize the Sanskrit versions, which would be, instead of sutta, it would be sutra with an R. Instead of kama, it would be karma with an R. And instead of Dhamma, it would be dharma with an R. So these things mean exactly the same thing. It's just different languages. So, and also, this video is not going to be to really compare Buddhism with Christianity, but just for people who are kind of wondering, what is there some kind of holy book that all Buddhists read, or exactly what is it that what kind of books can I get if I'm a beginner, or if I'm interested in a certain tradition. Now, obviously, this is going to be based off of the Theravada tradition, these texts. So this would be a little bit more helpful for those of you who are interested in Theravada Buddhism. But just really quick, as you could tell, the four main books on the top actually are, I would say, the most essential, and I'll get to everything else, the minor collections and all that here in a second. But just really quick, just to kind of show you, it's really not like in Christianity, where they have like one holy book and they consider it the Bible. If you just kind of comparing size here, and obviously a lot of this has to do with the size of the text within the book, how big the text is printed. So this is just something kind of as an example. This is quite large Bible here. But even if you compare just the very first book that is essential, you could see that even the smallest book is approximately the same thickness as a Bible, and if not a little bit thicker. So, when you put all these books together, we cannot say that we have just one particular, not just one particular book. But at the same time, what also is kind of interesting is historically, when the monks became enlightened, they did not necessarily hear every single teaching that is actually found within these books. Sometimes a person would become enlightened just hearing one teaching, one discourse, one sutta. And of course people became enlightened at different times, and everybody learns differently. So within this entire collection, you literally have thousands of suttas. And so, in a way, if you really completely 100% grasp any of the Buddhist teachings, it leads you to have the understanding of the Four Noble Truths in its entirety, and the Eightfold Path in its entirety, and all of that. Just one discourse, it is possible to become enlightened if you have a complete, full understanding of these things. At least according to the suttas, this has happened during the Buddhist time. And also, just as a kind of quick side note for any Christians that actually might be watching this video, again, I'm not here to judge, and I'm not here to really compare. It's just kind of showing kind of the differences between. Here we go. Also, for Christians, I'm sure that everybody has heard of the Dead Sea Scrolls, and for those of you who are Christians and you haven't really ever heard about the Dead Sea Scrolls, which I don't know why you wouldn't, unless you're a beginner to Christianity, the Bible itself consists of 66 small books, and that's actually not complete. There are still texts that are found within the Dead Sea Scrolls, which of course are part of the Bible. So that might be extremely obvious and kind of pointless in a way to some of you, but I just kind of wanted to share that really quick. Now, so let's begin with the first four. These are called the Nikayas. The Nikayas on the top. Get my little notes here, and you can see the first one. This is called the Digha Nikaya, the Long Discourses, and that consists of 34 suttas. It's not really very large, but the suttas are you can see that 34 teachings compiled into a book that is this thick, because the Buddha is talking for giving a much longer discourse. And the Majjhima Nikaya, which is the middle length discourses, so it gets a little bit thicker here, that contains 152 discourses or suttas. And the next one, even thicker than that, is the Samyutta Nikaya. These are the connected discourses, and I don't know exactly how many suttas is found within these, because this particular book is a little bit more based off of chapters and subcategories, etc. So each particular chapter or each book, minor books that are actually found within the Samyutta, will have a set number of suttas within each chapter, and I'm not really sure the exact number. And the next one is about the same size, is actually a little bit thicker, but this is the Anguttara Nikaya, numerical discourses, and basically these suttas, again, I don't know the exact number. This particular Nikaya is compiled into 11 books, and basically in terms of numbers, so if the Buddha is kind of a list form in terms of numbers, so if the Buddha is specifically talking about a list of 5 things, it would be found in the Book of Fives. If he's talking about a list of 8 things, it would be found in the Book of Eights. So each book has a particular number. But from what I understand, at least according to my notes here, there's over 2,000 suttas found within that particular Nikaya. So, the next thing on the list is, or the next book that I'm going to show you, this particular one is translated by John D. Ireland, as you can see, and this one has 2 books. These are 2 smaller books, the Udana and the Itivataka, and the according to my notes here, the Udana, again, I'm not exactly 100% sure how many, but basically it says explanations, short verses and parables. And the Itivataka, which is kind of known as the Thus Saids suttas, and that contains 112. So another 112 plus, possibly another 100 or so in the Udana, so, well over 200 in there. The next one is the Dhammapada. The Dhammapada and the Sutta Nipata. And the Dhammapada is sort of the equivalent of saying the path of the Dhamma, or the path of the Dharma, the teachings, and that consists of 423 short verses, and the Sutta Nipata contains 71 short suttas. Really, I'm actually going to skip down for one little thing here. This is called the Vinaya, and this basically is rules and this is basically rules and regulations in terms of how a monk and how monks and nuns should actually live their lives, basically in a monastic lifestyle, and also the precepts that they have, and basically how they should act and all of that, how they should behave. So this is the Vinaya text. It's really incredibly thick. As lay people, if you're not a monk or a nun and you don't live the monastic life, we have sort of a thing of the very basic precepts are 5, and depending on situations, you could actually take a couple more, but essentially we have 5 precepts, and obviously monks and nuns, they have like well over 200 things they have to follow each, and this goes into great detail about those things. So anyway, the next book is the Theravada, and this is the poems of early Buddhist monks. And these poems basically they coincide with the Nikayas and the other short discourses and all of that in the minor books, and likewise with the Theravada, poems of early Buddhist nuns. I would say that these 2 books are just sort of a minor collections. It's not really, these things aren't something that you really have to have. Like I said before, you can really just buy one of these books. I would say one of the Nikayas, and just study those, and just study one book. In fact, one of the most popular books and most well-known and most translated into a variety of languages is the Dhammapada. You could really study just that, and if you have a complete grasping of these things, that would be perfectly fine, in my opinion. Of course, you still have to have an understanding of the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path and all that. But anyway, this is going to be 2 videos probably, because about 30 seconds usually before I want to stop at about 15 minutes. So I will see you here in a bit for the part 2. Thank you.